Я подключение сейчас передаю настройку. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, AK heads, we are back with another episode of the Talking Lead AK Korner. This is season 3, episode 3. 3-3 in 2021, Kyle. What do you think about that? Kyle's muted himself, I think.
Oh, he just left. That's what he thinks of it.
He's like, "Fuck you, Marty." That's what I like about that. So we got a room full of AK aficionados. This episode, we're going to be talking about competition shooting. We've got some competition shooters here joining us. We've got an actual AK event organizer here, Red Oktober. I'm going to go ahead and go around the room here and introduce our guests. So, as always, I've got my co-host joining me, Brian Keeney with Occam Defense Solutions. Brian, welcome in.
Stoked as ever to be here. This is a nice break from a chaotic workday.
Cleaning the shitters?
Yeah. We had a tumbler malfunction that, at least it's not
happens.
shit. We'll put it that way. At least it's not feces.
Oh,
but
thank God.
Darn close.
It didn't look like it in that picture you sent.
Yeah.
Bless your heart.
Yeah.
Also joining us this episode from 212 Training Group, we've got our good buddy Jared Seagraves. Jared, welcome in.
What's up, Leadheads? Great to be here again, Marty. Thanks for having me. It's always great to get on here and just
shoot shit.
Learn from the greats, man.
This is a
shit.
shit
That's
theme,
right.
I think, is what.
That's
what
right.
I call it.
Brian set the tone.
There you go. Also joining us is one of 212's key trainers. We've got Aaron Keener. Aaron, welcome in.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for having me back. Looking forward to getting into the conversation.
Starting to be a habit, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm becoming a natural at these podcast things. I may have to do these more often.
I think you like to travel to different states and join the podcast. This episode, you're in Utah, right?
I'm all over the place, man. I kind of live life on the road a little bit.
You're everywhere. And then not joining us at the moment, but I guess he'll jump back on. I don't see him. He's not on here. Is he, Kyle? Is Kyle on here?
No.
Okay. No, he jumped off for some reason.
Kyle Moore, who was also on a previous episode.
He's back.
Kyle, are you back?
I am. I fucked that one up.
That's okay. We've been talking about you since you've been gone.
We just introduced you, Kyle, so
we just welcomed you in.
Thank you for having me.
Again. So you're making this a habit also. This is your second appearance on the Talking Lead Podcast. Is your second or third now? Did we do 2 episodes together when we did the concepts, AK concepts?
We did. There was a 2-part.
That's right. So this actually counts as your third episode. So there you go. You're becoming a veteran.
My third episode on 3. Huh?
3,
awesome.
3. Your third, yeah. Season 3, episode 3, your third episode. I knew we could tie that in somehow. Damn it. And then Kyle has brought a guest along. So Kyle, introduce the newbie, the new guy, never been on the podcast before.
Well, we're fortunate enough to have Brian Nelson with us here tonight. Brian's a pro shooter. I believe he's still affiliated with the Southern Utah Practical Shooting Club in a large capacity. He is the match director and the creator of Red Oktober, which has become my favorite match to attend. So with us, Brian Nelson, please say hello.
Hi, glad to be here, and thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to talking about guns and matches and shooting and stuff.
Brian, please educate me real quick. You're on our national shotgun shooting team, is that correct?
Yeah, so as far as shooting, I've been on 3 world championship teams in IPSC. One of them was the Shotgun World Shoot in 2018, and then I was in the Rifle World Shoots in 2017 and 2019.
That's some good bona fides right there.
Yeah, the newbie.
A little bit, yeah. That, and then run some matches. I've done some training. Now I work for a company called Scoring Technologies, which is the developer of software called Practice Score. I'm not smart with software. I can barely figure out Skype, but I work for that company to help with some of our other shooting sports and military marksmanship training scoring programs.
And do you do that all over the country, or is that it just in Utah?
No, it involves a pretty good amount of travel. Like, for example, tomorrow I'm going down to Las Vegas to meet with Rifle Dynamics about Red October, actually. And then I'll be going to LA from there. And then in the next couple months, a few different trips to North Carolina, Virginia, and California again for not necessarily competition shooting stuff. A lot of that is to do with our military scoring programs for scoring technologies.
Very cool. And we're going to hear more about Red October coming up here. But first, we got to thank those that make this show possible, all the sponsors of the show, like Occam Defense Solutions, Brian over there in Idaho, Moscow, Idaho, with the ODS 1775. We talked quite a bit about it the last few episodes, and I think a lot more people have heard about it, and hopefully you've gotten some more orders on those since the big AK Concepts course.
There were a few 1775s in Nashville, I think.
Nashville got invaded by the ODS 1775.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. It was the most guns that I've built in one place ever. So that was a lot of fun to see, and got a few orders out of the class there. And unfortunately, we're having to really ratchet down how many orders we can take. So if people are frustrated and not being able to find them, I apologize for that. We just don't sell anything that we can't deliver. So the good news is that when we do open orders, we ship within a few weeks, like 6 weeks, 4 weeks right now. So we are still shipping guns. It's just that they're coming out in a dribble right now because that's how many parts we can get. But on the flip side, the parts that we make, we're shipping a lot of those. We've got a big batch of stocks coming back in. By the time this drops, they'll be back up on the website. The new folding stock, the Hex 2.0.
Yeah, and I saw you're doing some sort of sweet engraving on those too.
Yeah, inspired by our friends at League of Pirates, and we like that. So there's some spice on them.
Little spice.
So is that going on all of the stocks, Brian, or just a run for LOP?
No, it's going on all of them from here on. Yep.
Well, I want to thank you for switching out stocks with me while you were here in Nashville. So I got one of those new folding hex stocks. So thank you for that. And
well, the 9mm in my lower back was very persuasive when we did that exchange. So yeah, totally happy.
You didn't have to tell them about that.
Oh shoot, that was one you said. Yeah, right. Never mind. Yeah.
So Odie, the Occam Defense Solutions, check them out, and it's the website, Brian.
OccamDefense.com.
So if you can't get a gun, you can still get some of those other sweet parts that they make, the butt stocks, the sight towers. Are you still doing those?
We're doing, yep. We got rear sight towers in stock. Mercs we're just about out of stock on, but we got more coming in, the handguard.
Okay.
Rear trunnions we're deep on. We just got a pile of those back from Heat Treat. We have a fixed version of the Hex that's pretty cool for 1913 rear trunnions, especially for you folks in California who can't run a folder. And then the folding Hex is the hotness right now.
There you go.
And,
so you can come close to making your own ODS 1775, but there's still some sweet things you can get, and the lube, the Occam lube, you've got that there available too. So check them out on their website. Dipstick Coatings, you're wearing the shirt that they did for us for the AK Concepts course. So big thanks to Danny for putting together those shirts for us on short notice. They turned out really well, and he can do any kind of custom shirts or just propaganda type stuff. You name it, they can do it there. You can go and he'll personalize with any sayings or logos that you've got, and they're at dip123.com. They used to do the hydrographics. I was doing some hydro dipping this weekend. I did some videos, and I don't know if you guys can see the AK there in the back. It looks kind of red and whitish behind me there. That's my Aloha Snack Bar AK. It's kind of got a Hawaiian-y theme to it. So I'll show you closer up pictures. But they're not doing the hydro dip anymore, so you missed out on that. Dip123.com. And, of course, Seal One, our good friends over at Seal One, seal1.net. We're going to be giving away one of their nice cleaning packages today for one of you lucky lead heads. It's going to have the CLP, complete gun care, lube. It's got the paste. There's a brush in there. There's a rag. There's the skins, the wipes. That's a all natural, non-hazardous cleaning solution that you can use on your guns, your knives, pretty much anything. But it works really good when you're cleaning your guns. So one product does it all. Seal1.net. And one of you lucky lead heads is going to get a nice Seal 1 package at the end of the show here. IWI US, we still haven't had them on. I'm trying to get with Jeremy to get them on, and we're going to do I haven't really nailed down when we're going to do that Uzi episode, but I'm teasing you with it, but we're still talking about doing that. But hit them up, tell them you want that Uzi episode. Let them know you're excited about it, and maybe I can get that scheduled sooner than later for you lead heads. Mission First Tactical. Those awesome trays. Did you get all those trays out, Jared? Unmute.
I have not got them all out yet. Been working, trying to get that done. Also been packing to head to Alabama for training. So
excuses. Blah,
yeah,
blah,
I know. They'll come out slowly but surely, guys. You guys that came to the AK Concepts, they'll be coming, I promise.
Yeah, so we had special gifts for our attendees to the class. They got the shirts, they got the dump trays. Andrew came by and he had some cool stuff from Century Arms. I think Primary Arms, didn't they give us some stuff too? Some beanies and things like that?
Yeah, they sent some beanies and some caps up for the event. So thanks to them. So it was really good.
Really took care of our students. So next class we have, we'll definitely let you lead heads know. You can sign up, and you'll get all the hotness when you sign up. But you can go to Mission First Tactical, get the dump trays. They've got magazines there, AK or not AK, but AR magazines. I wish they would make some AK magazines. They make really good AR magazines. But you can use the code LEADHEAD, get 20% off at Mission First. Factory 47, they make the shirts that I'm wearing, the official AK Korner, talking about AK Korner T-shirts, hoodies. They've got them for men, they got them for women, and they've got the tumblers that are engraved with the Talking Lead AK Korner logo on there. You can use Leadhead there. Also get 10% off at Factory 47. That's Factory with a K, Faktory 47. And then Nemo Arms, our newest sponsors of the Talking Lead podcast in general. Don't normally mention my other sponsors on this show, but they just dropped a new discount code, and I want to get it out there. It's TL10, and you get 10% off anything at their website, and that includes their guns. So their shotguns, their ARs, their AR-15s, their AR-10s, and their pistols. Anything you get 10% off. So that's pretty huge in this day and age, and those are some high-quality firearms. You guys familiar with Nemo Arms?
Yes, I've got a very good friend. In fact, he's one of our instructors that he was at our last Virginia class, Philip Evans. He runs a Nemo. And one day I called him and I said, "What are you up to?" He said, I'm working on my groups at 1400. I'm like, oh, okay. 14. And he's running a Nemo. He likes to shoot a long way. So they're pretty impressive.
Yeah, they're actually out of Idaho as well, and I've been by their shop in Nampa maybe a year or two ago, probably 2 years now. Very nice people and a very high-quality product. Yeah, neat outfit.
Yeah, those shotguns are like heirloom quality. I'm actually going to be getting one of those here in the next, hopefully, couple of weeks to try out, so I'll be making posts with that shotgun.
Look at you.
Yeah, baby. Nothing
well,
when you're the best for Lefty.
When you're chiseling for product, they have their 300 Win Mag and their bigger AR platforms. They've got a patented bolt carrier with lower recoil that's really clever in how they did it. And so try chiseling. If you're listening, Lefty will pimp that really well for you.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the Nemo that I've had a chance to get behind is the 300 Win Mag, and it's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, well, believe you me, I'm angling for it. So we'll see. I'm starting with the shotgun.
Oh,
That's what I'm looking at right now. Holy cow!
Yeah.
These are some fine firearms.
Right?
I'm super jealous of the shotgun. I'm just saying, that's rookie numbers. We got to bump them numbers up. Let's get the next.
I appreciate the endorsement, though. Thank you. And then, of course, 212 Training Group with buddy Jared there. We have been in talks about doing some more classes like we did with the AK concepts. But you've got some things already on the books. Jared, you want to throw that out there real quick?
Yeah, what we've got on the books now, April 10th, we're doing a handgun class here. We are working on scheduling. I've been in contact with the Royal Range the last couple of days. We're working on our next training date up there, most likely going to be the end of July. We're also working on trying to do an AK class, a rifle class here in Texas. We're trying to fit these dates in around HSP dates that I've got to work. And then looks like we're going to go to Virginia possibly the first or second weekend in June. So we've got a lot of things that we're trying to nail down right now. So just keep your eyes on the website and on the social media and listen in for future podcasts here with Talking Lead, and we're going to get some trainings nailed down. Nice.
I like it. And then for this episode, we've got Geisley and ALG that are throwing in an AK enhanced trigger for one of you lucky lead heads. So this is going to be the third giveaway for this episode. So we're going to give away the SEAL 1 package, Mission First Tactical Dump Tray, and then this awesome ALG AK trigger enhanced with the lightning bow. So that's going to be a really sweet giveaway for one of you lead heads.
If I ask a good question, could I get on the trigger maybe?
If you posted it on the Instagram post or Facebook post, yes. No, you're not eligible. You know better than that.
Nah, I know. I'm just shitting.
All right, so we want to talk competition shooting here. And I know I've gone through some of the questions from our listeners, and we're going to get to those. There's a lot of good questions. But let's just kind of go around the table here, and everybody give your kind of your resume on the competition shooting. We'll start with Kyle. Or not. It's like he's frozen. Okay.
Yeah, if you can hear me, I'm experiencing some technical difficulties. Nothing's moving and everybody sounds funny.
Now we hear you. How about now? We'll come back to you. Let's go to Aaron.
All right. Yeah, no, I can hear you guys. So
okay. So
Kyle,
tell us a little bit about your competition history, how you got into it, and some of the competitions you've been in.
Sure. I think it's probably good that we started out with me because I'm probably one of the more amateurs in the competition space. I tend to, when it comes to firearms, I tend to dabble in all sorts of things. So everything from competition to one-man room clearing, small team tactics, precision with multiple platforms, and of course teaching and sharing knowledge as I gather that along the way. So my competition experience is relatively limited, just to some local matches and things, some two-gun, some pistol when I was younger, some trap and skeet when I was younger. We don't really need to go into that, but it's been it is relatively limited. The downside of me dabbling in all of those things and kind of being more of that general defensive firearms practitioner is that my gear and things aren't totally set up for just one type of event or one thing. So just a little bit of experience. I would definitely consider myself an amateur in the competition world, but have gathered some great knowledge, tools, and tips along the way.
Okay, what got you interested in it originally?
Honestly, it's awesome to watch people. I think I think really growing up, my dad got me into some trap and skeet shooting, and at a very young age, was member of the NRA pistol club and Boy Scouts and all that fun stuff, and just everything from just marksmanship just kind of grew just over the years as I was younger. And I think as I started diving into just kind of learning at a more advanced pace, I started traveling the country trying to learn from the best of the best. Competition was definitely up there, and in terms of speed, their accuracy, their movements is so much different when I started seeing them on TV, and I started watching hearing friends go to meets and things like that, I was really intrigued, and I definitely wanted to get exposed to that and see what I could learn and kind of put in my own tool set and to expand my knowledge. So,
how long have you been in the competition shooting?
My first competition was when I was 9,
Okay.
but I wouldn't say that I've been an avid competitor since then. Like I said, I just kind of dabble in it from time to time.
Yeah, and I think that's, like you were talking about the skeet shooting. The younger kids can get involved with competition shooting with the skeet shooting with the shotguns, and it's a great way for them to cut their teeth and get into the pressures that are in competition shooting. So I think that for younger people, that's a great place to start to get into the sport. Definitely.
Absolutely.
All right, Kyle's back with us now.
Yeah, is that working better? Can you all hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got some terrible weather here, so my internet's in and out. Everything's intermittent right now.
So tell us a little bit about your background in competition shooting. How you got
I have no
involved.
background, man. I like to shoot a lot.
You should shoot a lot.
I just shoot a lot. No, but really, I started as a kid shooting rimfire, 22 long rifle, 50-yard iron sights, Annie Oakley, a little bit of shotgun stuff, nothing like Mr. Nelson over there. And then really I had no interest in shooting semi-automatic, run and gun sort of stuff until Red October came out. And I was sold just being an AK enthusiast. I thought, man, I got to do this. And that really kind of hit it off for me at that point. I started shooting some IDPA. I don't really own an AR that's equipped to go do something like that. So I idle by every year waiting for another AK match to come up. And so I've tried to hit everyone that was available. Last year, we all got kind of screwed, out of the matches that were available because of COVID. So I didn't make it to Clash Bash. And now it seems to be conflicting with Red October this upcoming year. So we'll see if we're able to hit both of them or not. But yeah, no, really, I'm very much a novice as a competitive shooter. I've just been fortunate enough to have support from some wonderful companies, which has enabled me to train a lot. And I usually do okay when I do enter in, top 5%, not winning anything, but trying to get there. If I can burn more ammo, I think I could get there.
Practice makes perfect, and good luck finding
That's
the
right.
ammo, right?
Yeah.
So, Jared, let's go to you.
Well, my intro into the competitive world was actually as a 4-H rifle and pistol coach as my kids were growing up, and that was an unbelievable experience because we had, at one time, just in our small county, we had 75 kids that were involved in the club, and every month they were showing up, and we were running probably 35 kids at any given practice, and they were just the most incredible. It was incredible to see their growth and see them form a love of shooting. So then I started shooting some local matches, 2-gun, some 3-gun matches here locally, and my intro into the AK world was when Brian invited me in 19 to come shoot Red October. And that's how I actually met Kyle, and it was just a phenomenal experience, kind of like Aaron said, getting to see some of the best shooters on the planet and just study how they did their job, and you just pick up efficiencies. And when we're up from a training aspect, which is what I've took a dive into 8 or 9 years ago, a lot of times people don't think that real world applications can learn much from competition, and that's just absolutely wrong in my opinion, because it all boils down to efficiency, and time is money. When you can more efficiently run a gun, you've got to be accurate, period. I mean, you can be as fast as you want to, but you don't hit shit, you're done. So I just really enjoyed the Red October experience, and Kyle and I, we met on, I think, the Friday before the match started. We were both walking around just scoping out the stages, and then we started chatting, and we spent the next 2 days going from stage to stage together, and we would walk up to the stage and watch everyone else run it. We would strategize and figure out what we could do to shave a tenth off here or a quarter second there, and it was just a great experience. So I really fell in love with it, and I was super pumped about 2020, and then the shitstorm of COVID hit.
How many competitions have you been in?
That was the only major competition I've been in. I've been in small local matches.
Those count.
Off and on. Yeah, off and on over the last few years. Just anytime I could make them. I love going. I love really just meeting the people and building relationships. And it's just some camaraderie. Everybody's always rooting for each other, and it's just a great environment. And it's truly, when people dive off into it, it becomes about learning.
Sure.
And that's what I'm passionate about. So, I'm a little bit bummed that our training calendar of 21 is basically, it looks like I'm not even going to be able to make Kalash Bash or Red October, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, but you're going to be shooting, so that's good.
Yeah. So anyway,
I
can't. Yeah, and I can't wait. I can't wait till I get to jump back in and watch Kyle do his thing,
coming.
man. And
it's coming.
Be a part of it.
All this
yeah.
nonsense.
We need.
It's coming to an end.
Nelson, we need to organize a few more things here in Texas, man, because it could be. I mean, let's why
we'll
do
network
it once
offline.
Yeah, let's do that.
We'll
man.
do that. We'll network offline.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get to Brian Nelson. Hold on, Brian. Brian Keeney, have you done any competition shooting?
None in an organized environment. At a few classes, I've done that kind of thing. But my only competition experience in shooting is sponsoring events. I think twice for Red October, and then maybe some other smaller events. And so I get to interact with the shooters and spectators, but in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And so looks awesome. Just I've got this work thing that has seemed to take over all of my my recreational shooting time lately.
All right, so I've saved the best for last. So Brian Nelson, let's hear a little bit more about how you got into the competition shooting and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, well, I've been into shooting guns all my life since my dad showed me how to be safe with a pistol when I was 4. Then when I was 11, I was watching a shooting show and saw this thing called IDPA. And went and grabbed my dad and said, "Hey, look at this." And it's been a almost a weekly thing in some way, shape, or form since then. Really took to it, enjoyed it. So from there, I started shooting. Basically, I've done every action shooting sport except for the NRA Bianchi Cup. So that's USPSA, IDPA. I think the biggest thing I got into really was 3-gun shooting. That's when I kind of I won more stuff in that, and then
did you ever do the
I even did Cowboy
3-Gun
Action
Nation? Did you do some of those competitions?
Yeah, yep. I was actually on back when 3-Gun Nation was a TV show. I was on a couple seasons of that. Wasn't like it was a produced TV show. It was a match that they filmed people shooting.
Yeah.
But yep, I was in that.
Yeah, I really liked it when they were doing that. It's a shame that they screwed that all up.
Yeah. Sandy Hook didn't help with that. So for 3-gun shooters, 3-Gun Nation kind of has a bad rap for people who were sort of in it or in the know just because of some of the organizational things they did. But if I were to break it down, I think what really killed it was in 2012, they were on NBC Sports in prime time, and it was really catching on. And it was responsible for a lot of growth in 3-gun that people don't really give it for.
Yeah.
Just in exposing people to, especially the first 2 seasons where they were going around to all the outlaw matches.
Anytime you can get a sport televised, it's going to explode. That's what happened to poker. Once they figured out how to televise it, then poker, Texas Hold'em just exploded, and that's where 3-gun was headed until it hit the roadblocks. And
it was sort of it aligned with 2 things. They stopped going to the matches that really I thought looked cool. I was already shooting, but I decided to shoot 3-gun from watching the first season of 3-Gun Nation, where I'm seeing dudes go around to. And this was sort of in 2010 or 11 when 3-Gun was really on an upsweep. And you're seeing dudes going around to matches where they're breaching doors with shotguns and shooting M240s and going down zip lines at the MGM Ironman. I'm looking at it going, dude, I just shot a 32-round field course and thought that was cool, and that stage takes 3 minutes or 5 minutes. So that's what kind of got me into it. And then the Three Gun Nation Pro Series they started up was compressed. The stages were shorter, and they all started to kind of look the same. So I think that was less interesting from a viewer perspective. My read on it, being a person who viewed it, and then they got off of NBC Sports on primetime when that Sandy Hook shooting happened, and it was kind of downhill from there.
I think it's safe to bring it back, though.
What's that?
I think it's safe to bring it back now.
Yeah, until the next thing happens.
Well, there's always going to be a thing that happens. As long as it's got a big enough following, it's not going to go away.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things in areas I think where it's great that we have now kind of less centralized traditional media bringing us our sports. We still have problems with just pick a social network. They don't really like us and what we do, be that Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube especially. But it's still easier to get like footage of a match out and just be shared around. Like I know some friends that just have had, especially junior shooters that had something shared on even like, I think Barstool Sports, a friend of mine had just a short video of him shooting like a Texas Star with a shotgun shared there. And people look and go, whoa, what is that? Right. I have a shotgun, but I don't do that,
Yeah. Well, I think until we get people's mindsets of like, driving cars, and all the people that die from wrecks, but they still do NASCAR. You still get to watch NASCAR on. Yeah. It's televised and it's huge and it's very popular, and we got to get people start thinking of it like that.
Based on bootlegging, like
right. Just based on criminal activity.
Yeah,
that's a good point. All right, so let's talk about some of the gear that a competition shooter will need, and especially if you're going to be shooting AK competitions. And then we'll kind of differentiate between just like three guns and the different competitions and the AKs, and maybe why we're not seeing as many AKs in like a three gun competition. But let's go around the table. Who wants to start off and talk about their gear that they use and why?
Well, I guess I can kind of kick that off. Although I should preface this. So even though I kind of started AK matches in the U.S., like there weren't really any before Red October in the first year. Even though I started it all, I've never actually shot an AK competition by itself. I've only ever used an AK in some other match. So if you're shooting an AK match, at least Red October, it's actually fairly simple on the equipment setup for everything surrounding the gun. I haven't really looked at the Kalash Bash rules recently to see what the different divisions are, but they're generally structured so that if you've never seen how a competition shooting like scoring setup works,
let's do this then. Let's just talk about what goes, the different types of competitions, the different classes, those type things, and then maybe I'm doing it backwards, and then we'll talk about the gear and the stuff like that. So you're on the right path. Let's just do it that way.
Yeah, so backing it up from the different types of things, let's just back it up from the things you could use an AK in. The primary thing would be just a specific AK match, and that would be like Red October, Kalash Bash, or one of the other now AK events that are kind of more of a thing. And that's a rifle-only event. It doesn't require a pistol. It's just based around the AK. And within any competition shooting event, there are typically different equipment divisions to separate out guns based on their performance characteristics, like making sure that you're not scoring 5.45 guns against 7.62 by 39 guns. Sometimes there's separation as to if you're using an optic versus iron sights, how many rounds you have in a magazine, just so that there's kind of a place to compare yourself with people shooting similar equipment. Because we know, for example, that shooting a 5.45 gun with a magnified optic or a red dot sight is definitely more competitively oriented, or it gives you an advantage over an iron sighted 7.62 by 39 gun. But we want both people to show up and use that gun and feel like they had a place to compete. So that's why we have equipment divisions. If you're shooting an AK specific match, it's pretty simple, man. You're gonna need the gun that works, first of all, that you verified works and is zero and all that good stuff. And like one or two magazine pouches is pretty much pretty much about all you will need for that, fortunately, because we do, the minimum magazine capacity is going to be like 30 rounds in terms of what's allowed. Sometimes it's restricted. You can use no more than 30 rounds in certain equipment divisions. In another equipment division, you might be allowed to use a drum. Either way, you're really not going to see a lot of courses of fire that you can't accomplish with 90 rounds, that being a 30-round magazine in the gun and 2 30-rounders on the belt. Like, if you need 90 rounds, you're probably going to run out of time before you run out of bullets. Maybe. I mean, there's spectacular skill at... I am particularly good at expending ammunition rapidly and not hitting much.
Well, that goes into the practice, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, and then there are other, the kind of the problem, not problem, but one of the things that's different about, so I mentioned other leagues and sports like USPSA, IDPA. Those are governing and organized bodies that have a consistent set of rules and challenges anywhere you go. So if I shoot a local USPSA match here in St. George, Utah this weekend, and then next weekend I go to Nashville, I'm going to be shooting pretty much the same thing. And if I shoot a rifle match here and I shoot a rifle match in Nashville, there's no real organizing body that keeps the left and right lateral limits tight. So it could be completely different. Like, I shoot a rifle match here, and I could shoot nothing further than 50 yards. If it's just a rifle match that a local action shooting club has put on, it could be nothing's further than 50 yards and nothing smaller than like a USPSA humanoid silhouette target. And then I go to a match in Texas, and oh, by the way, yeah, we have like 8-inch targets at 400 yards, and there's a bunch of stuff at like 600 to 700 yards. So it's a little hard to pin down exactly what the thing is going to be in your area for rifle-only matches.
Well, typically you're going to ask before you go, so you know how to.
That's typically a good idea, and most places now are better about letting you know what's going to happen ahead of time and having sort of an online or social media presence.
Yeah.
Like when I started doing this in 2007, like I shot a lot in Las Vegas, which is like a 2-hour drive from here. And then they eventually said, hey, why don't you guys like shoot in St. George? Turns out there was a club 15 minutes from my house. The only way you would possibly know about it was, someone telling you.
Word of mouth kind of deal. Yeah.
Now things are better. But yeah, looking out ahead of time.
Talk a little bit about, you're talking about the different divisions of shooting. There's like open, there's tactical, there's all kinds of different ones, and now that all determines on how you can, what optics you can use, magazines, distance, that kind of stuff.
So generally speaking, now there's a movement within the sport of 3-gun, which requires rifle, pistol, and shotgun, of course, to include a 2-gun division where you can not use a shotgun and you can engage. Usually what you would do is if there are targets that would be shot with shotgun, they're steel targets and they would be engaged with a pistol. And sometimes they'll put in, like, if there's a flying clay, instead of shooting this flying clay with a pistol, that's like not okay most places because people get mad when they find 9mm rounds in their Cheerios on the subdivision by the range.
Yeah, not a good idea.
Some places you can. I've been, I've shot at matches where we throw. I just put on a match where we threw a flying clay for a pistol, and that was a mandatory target.
Okay.
Yeah, at a different location, not the old facility we had Red October on 2018 and previously, but a different place with plenty of danger space and mountain to catch that bullet. Anyway, so typically a 2-gun division, like I'm registered now for the Superstition Mountain Mystery 3-gun that's in Mesa, Arizona, same club that puts on the Red October Cold War match, or
pretty famous. Yeah, it's a pretty famous 3-gun competition.
Yep. Yeah, it's. I think now it's the oldest continuously running 3-gun match. It's been around longer than I have. So, but yeah, they have a division called Stealth 2-gun now, which is basically. I actually just finished setting up a pistol for it.
And he's showing us this pistol now. Okay.
Yeah, for those who are like me, playing along on the car. Basically, what you're seeing is a CZ Shadow 2. Different sports. There's 2 primary ways to run a 2-gun match, or to run 2-gun within a 3-gun match. I I would say actually the most common thing you're going to run into, to the extent that it's common at all, is the Unified or United Multi-Gun League, UML. Their matches specifically have provisions in the rulebook where you can shoot a 2-gun division. They have 2 2-gun divisions, one of which is tactical, which requires an iron-sighted pistol. You can't have like a compensator or ported barrel, and the magazines have to be no longer than 140 millimeters. So if you're familiar with USPSA, those are limited division magazines, or like a common example people know is that's like the Magpul 21-round Glock PMag. That's generally anywhere from 20 to 40 rounds, or the 20-round mag that comes stock with a P320 M17 type mag. They also have a 2-gun open division where you can use optical sights, 170 millimeter magazines, which are kind of they're generally 26 to 28 rounds. And then on the rifles, the determining thing is pretty much optics. So in UML 2-gun divisions, they have, it's 2-gun optic, not tactical. They changed the names. They changed their rule books with some regularity, so it's hard to keep up. But 2-gun optics, or what we used to be tactical 2-gun, the rifle can have 1 magnified optic, so it would be set up. I actually have a rifle here set up somewhat similar for those playing along, audio only. It's an AR-15. You can see the silly putty on the grip from me making it fit. And there's 1 magnified optic. In this case, it's a Vortex Viper PST. And then that's a 1-6. So typically that for close targets is used on 1X. But I do also have a set of backup offset iron sights. And those are Magpul M-Bus Pros. But that would be legal in the tactical division at pretty much every 3-gun match. And that would be legal for UML 2-gun.
And you don't have to use an AR. You could use an AK for that, right?
You can use an AK. So that's another topic that maybe fitting the AK into existing shooting matches might need to be kind of another topic in terms of flow.
Yeah. Let's kind of talk about that. Yeah, the ones that you could fit an AK into.
So that is somewhat challenging because this might be a little bit controversial in me talking about it for people, but
we like
there
controversy.
is,
do it.
So, and I'm not afraid to put this one out there because I do talk about it on social media a lot. We artificially limit the bullets, the projectiles, and ammunition that you can use in competition in, I think, kind of a not very smart way. So basically, the way that we determine what quote armor piercing unquote ammunition is whether or not there's anything ferrous or steel or iron in that projectile. So if there's any steel at all, basically if that bullet will stick to a magnet, it is generally not allowed in a competitive shooting match, with some notable exceptions. So, and those would be events. There's no exceptions to that rule if it's present. So basically, like, I'm going to Superstition Mountain in a couple weeks, and they test your ammo. They just, hey, show me a bullet. And then they stick a magnet to it. If the magnet sticks, you're disqualified, period. Because they
what's the reasoning behind that?
So it's mostly, I think, kind of a misinformation about how armor piercing any steel ammo actually is. So for my background in shooting matches, as well as doing firearms instruction for the civilian and military market, as well as now a lot of measurement of guns and shooting for scoring tech, I've now seen, I would say, probably hundreds of thousands of rounds of M855 green tip, like 62 grain ball, shot on AR-500 steel. And yes, that has got a steel core in the bullet. It is far worse, quote, worse than even like Tula, Wolf, or bimetal, steel jacketed ammo.
Worse as in it penetrates further? Is that what it is? So are they afraid that they're going to damage their targets?
The reality is it's no different. I've actually shot the same piece of AR-500, AR-550 steel with 55 grain M193, with 62 grain M855 green tip, and with 545 7N6, which is steel core 545. There's really no difference between the three. If anything, the 55 grain M193 stuff makes a worse divot or dimple on armor plate steel, which of course causes a safety hazard if you shoot it at closer distances because it throws more spalling and fragmentation back at you. But any one of those cartridges leaves a divot, and honestly, 55s or the 55 grain ball is usually worse just because the biggest thing that causes damage to armor plate steel is really velocity, and that can change if you have a legitimately hardened projectile. But M855, which is steel core, or especially bimetal ammo, it's not any good. It's not hard enough.
But they put that rule in because they don't want their targets damaged. Is that the reasoning behind that?
It's kind of the perception is they don't want their targets damaged, and in reality, it's just a rule. I think that someone made up because they were worried about it, and it just gained inertia, and it's been the standard for 20 years since then. Now, one other concern that is more legitimate, I think, is kind of the same reason why California doesn't allow steel core or steel jacketed ammunition. I'm not saying that's right. It's wrong as hell. But the stated concern is it is a bigger fire danger. So if you have shot Red October, especially the years where we had night shoot-offs and stuff, you got to see bimetal ammunition on AR-500 steel, and it makes a lot of sparks. Yeah. I mean, it's just... So, yes, there is kind of an increased fire danger, but I have actually seen fires caused by regular lead and copper bullets hitting steel as well. It's just a function of, like, if there's a real fire danger, I hate to say it, but we have to kind of be adults and, like, not put steel out. And at some point, like, even consider maybe we shouldn't even be shooting bullets into this area, because I've even seen, no one believes it happens, but I have even seen just a bullet, regular, like, lead and copper bullet fired into really dry, combustible.
You go to these range days all the time, and, you know, there's fires that break out from that.
Yeah, so anyway, but then the problem is if we're shooting a regular AK, either an AKM or AK-47, 7.62x39, or especially if we're shooting an AK-74 in 5.45, good luck finding affordable and accessible non-steel ammo. Like, the jacket has steel in it. It's honestly less damaging to steel targets than most commercial 55 grain 223 ammo.
Yeah. Because
the velocities are lower, especially 7.62x39. It's rougher on, like, bolts and target hangers because there's just more energy dumped. But in terms of the face of the actual target itself, like the AR-500 plate, it's not bad, but it's still not legal because if it sticks to a magnet, it's just not allowed. And that's common within the USPSA, the UML, and the sort of even a lot of the standardized outlaw rule books. So,
but if you were to use brass ammo, then you'd be okay.
Well, it's not about the case even. It's the actual plating of the projectile or coated jacket.
Yeah.
So if you're using lead and copper ammo, yeah, it's fine. The problem is with 7.62x39, it's not quite as hard because you can get, right now I know, to the extent that you can get everything, you can get Cellular and Bellet, S&B, I think Privy Partisan, and I know Hornady all make a non-steel jacketed 7.62 bullet. The problem is...
What is Defiance, Brian, Jared?
What's that? Sorry?
It's another brand of ammunition.
Yeah, Defiant munitions. That's a solid copper projectile with a brass case. I think right now he's making them with
Lapua brass.
But yeah, Lapua brass, very nice round. They are spendy. Like
that's the biggest problem is I want to shoot an AK in 7.62, but if I have to shoot non-bimetal ammo, now I'm looking at, like, I think the cheapest thing you could do right now, well, is nothing, but the cheapest thing you could do, like in 2019, was buy S&B, and I think that was like 70 cents a round or something like that for a legal 7.62x39 to shoot in every shooting match.
Now you can't find it.
Wolf actually has some out now that's full copper jacket for this particular.
Yeah, that's right. They have that, like, range safe line.
Yep. I haven't. I can't swear to its quality at the moment. far from it, but it does exist, and my hope is that as we get out of COVID, the quality pops up on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one of the main reasons why we don't see more AKs in like the 3-gun competitions. Then,
yeah, that's definitely part of it. Because you're looking at 70 cents at least. You used to be able to find, if you can still find it, just because if you're watching this and you have a 7.62 AK, you want to shoot in one of these matches. Yugoslavian Ammo M67 was the designation, I think. That is a brass-cased, copper-jacketed bullet that's legal everywhere. It is a little bit spicier than your standard M43, like normal steel case, whatever, Wolf, Tula, Golden Tiger, 7.62-39. And the primers are like definitely corrosive, so run some soapy water down the barrel of the gun when you're done. But it was legal everywhere. That we kind of, I think that dried up, or we haven't had a shipment in for a while. But
Butch sorry to cut you off, Brian. Butch at Ammo Supply Warehouse has it right now. Like it was dried up for forever, but Ammo Supply Warehouse and also Atlantic about a month ago had a shipment come in, and I agree with you. It is really nice ammo.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, even if you don't want to shoot a match, just like you should go buy some like right now. Well, you should go buy some after I buy some.
Yeah, it's good.
You're going to get the jump on them because they're not going to hear this to the
Thanks, Brian. They had it until you said that.
Yeah. And good advice on the soaping your barrel out. I would add the gas tube as well. Some people use ammonia.
Yep.
My understanding is that the only benefit that ammonia adds is that it's a surfactant, meaning that you said soapy water, same difference really. We're just trying to pull the salts out of there. So if you're in a desert environment like Kyle in Arizona, you might not see an issue as much. But if you're on the eastern seaboard, it's like if you don't look at it for 5 minutes after you shoot, it'll be rusted shut. So it really depends on where you are, but Ryan's offering very good advice, and washing your piston down as well is a big deal.
Yeah. And I actually have like a semi-religious objection to cleaning guns as a matter of course. The one exception is if I'm shooting corrosive ammo. Like I just don't want to have my stuff rust up. That's generally bad.
Exactly.
We haven't
same.
cleaned a gun since.
Which if you use Seal 1, it prevents corrosion. So there you go.
There you go.
Great for AKs and corrosive ammo.
Gentlemen, I've got to boogie to take care of this continuing bathroom crisis that we've got over here. Do you mind if I interject a couple thoughts as a bit of a change up, and then I'll be off into the sunset?
Go.
Well,
please.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the first one is that even if you are a rank beginner, these things are kind of like Burning Man. It's not like there's hot chicks running around half naked on drugs, but it's a lot of wild people that are dressed up in period correct uniforms for different countries and different conflicts. A lot of characters, a lot of fun people, and that's kind of my favorite part about Red October is seeing all these people that are completely jazzed about AKs. So even if you're not interested in competition or you don't feel you're competent, show up. It's awesome. It's an event, and there's a ton of vendors, lots of machine guns that you can, I won't say that it's free to shoot them, but it's not a crazy amount of money. It used to be something like $20 a mag, which if you know what it costs to maintain a machine gun and buy ammo, that's a deal. And then there's vendors with all kinds of goodies for sale and stuff to try out. You can try, like OSS silencers, dead air silencers is usually, both of those outfits both make very nice cans, especially for the AK. Are at these events. We're at them, so it's a good opportunity to demo one of our rifles if you're wondering what's up. And just all around a nice group of folks. You won't find that kind of density of AK lovers kind of anywhere else in the U.S. that I'm aware of, except maybe Knob Creek or, one of the big machine gun shoots, something like that. But even then, it's quite mixed as to what people are into. And then the other one, if you're not terribly interested in competition or you're full-on a martial gunfighter, the advice that one of my teachers and friends, James Yeager, has on shooting competitions is to, if you're worried about training scars or that kind of thing in competition, to just shoot it straight with sound tactics, and don't care what your score is. Just shoot it, because a lot of them are, especially Red Oktober, it has some very interesting tactical scenarios where you have to safely manipulate your firearm through things like tunnels.
Yeah, I want Brian
weird
to talk
configurations
about
where
those things,
I forget if it's Clint Smith or who says that the 4 firearm safety rules count all the time. Those are combat rules as well. And so if you're not somebody that gets to be off of a square range very often, Red Oktober is a really cool opportunity to just shoot something straight, and don't even worry about the shot timer, or treat it as pressure in a tactical situation. There's that line that you have the rest of your life to reload in a gunfight. And so you can shoot these a bunch of different ways, and I'm not meaning to throw shade or anything at the guys who are active competitors. Just saying, there's more than one reason to show up to these things, and even if you have a spouse that kind of likes guns but doesn't really like them, there's a lot to do there too. So it's not the worst event to drag your significant other to if they're not a gun person.
Plus, if it's in Vegas, they can go to the casinos or whatever while you do the competition. But I want Brian Nelson to talk more about the event itself and go into details about it. But those are great points, Brian Keeney. Appreciate that, buddy.
Cool. Well, thank you guys all very much for your time and listening. And Brian, really good to see you again, and good listening. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks
guys.
All right.
Yep.
See you, Brian.
All right, so I want you guys to chime in, Kyle and Jared, and Aaron's gone, I guess. You've got questions as Brian or comments as Brian is talking. So there's Aaron.
Well, I think Keeney touched on a really good point there, something that was foreign to me the first time I shot a match, in that there is a difference between a competition and a tactical application, and even to the extent of the gear that you're wearing. I see a lot of guys running chest rigs in a competition, which really isn't the fastest way to go about it, but that's what they use. That's what they have. That's their gear. So that's what they train with, which is really cool. I remember the first time I attended a match, I had a weapon light, and it was in the middle of the day. And then I realized, well, that's really dumb. What do I need that here for? But again, that was what I had. And so Brian's absolutely right. There's a lot of different reasons why any of your listeners should be attending these matches. If they're a firearm enthusiast, they're just a socialite, if they're a competitive shooter, if they want to go practice their tactics and slicing the pie and manipulating their weapon through confined spaces, it covers all of the above. You don't necessarily have to be the fastest guy on the range to enjoy it and do well, because really, who are you metering yourself against? You should be yourself.
And I'll add that that even if you are taking it from more of a tactical approach, that there is a lot of added pressure, and that's pressure you normally don't get when you get on the flat range. And so that's a good thing to expose yourself to, whether you're trying to win the competition or you're trying to practice sound tactics or kind of get better at your weapon manipulations, those things. So that additional pressure and people watching you, and the hell, just putting yourself on a shot timer sometimes will definitely add that. I very much fall into the boat that you're describing, Kyle, in terms of gear. A lot of people don't want to fully commit to go full on competition shooting, and so they want to get gear that might make sense for maybe their concealed carry or their daily type things, but maybe they don't want to get 2 or 3 holsters for different events or those things. So I think that's to the gear point we talked about earlier. I'm very much in that same boat where my gear will work for competition, but it's probably not the best thing, because I kind of want it to be a jack of all trades type gear setup. Yeah.
It's not driven specifically for like the requirements that you're going to see on a competitive shooting stage.
Exactly.
It's like, I probably now almost shot more matches with the Safariland ALS holster in a USPSA, like retention holster, than I have with the actual nice USPSA like production division holster that I have. More from me being lazy and not changing out the holster. But yeah.
Let's kind of get into that since we're talking gear now. Let's kind of talk about how you kit yourself out for one of these competitions. I mean, you just talk just talk specifics about the holsters, the belts, the the mag carriers, all that.
Well, that's it. Number one, right? You've got to have a good holster. If you're going to carry a sidearm, you got to have a holster, and the same can be applied to a sling. Now, I have seen even at Red October courses of fire where a sling can hinder you, but it's always easier to remove it and set it aside than it is to put it on if you don't have it with you. So, absolutely bring a sling, good mag packages, and a couple good mags. Beyond that, it's frills and thrills. But those are absolutely.
Can I elaborate on that sling a little bit, Kyle? I mean, think about the stage where you ate some granite.
Yes.
You had to sling the rifle because your hands were carrying two steel plates.
Yep.
And so the sling manipulation from a competitive standpoint or just from a general firearms manipulation standpoint is one of those things that people take for granted a lot of times. And there's a lot of options out there. And Aaron does a phenomenal teach on sling manipulation. But, simply from demoing a drill and then slinging a rifle and putting it on my back, people always come up and say, well, how'd you do that? Or they'll see Aaron, run a sling and they'll come up and say, specifically show me how you did that. And it has application. It has application in any realm, from competition, real world application, law enforcement, military, it doesn't matter. And all it is if we add a piece of gear. So many times I've been guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. We buy the gear and then we throw it on the rifle or throw it on ourselves, and we don't truly understand how to manipulate it and run it. And that's something that it just takes investment and time. And a lot of times people are reluctant to ask questions. And I think that they have to be in the right environment where people are readily available to give and share information. And this community, from my experience, is phenomenal about that, because people, if you start a conversation with somebody and you've got somebody that's one, person is very experienced in competition, somebody maybe has been to a few competitions, and you got somebody brand new, we need to do all we can to take those new shooters and bring them in and just share the knowledge and get their comfort levels up, because that's the only way we're going to build this entire community, is just sharing knowledge. And that's everything.
And that honestly ties into what Brian Keeney was saying before he left, is that, even Brian Nelson was saying, hey, not all social media is our friend or likes the kind of stuff that we talk about. It's not super friendly to the firearms community all the time. So you can YouTube stuff all day long, but, honestly, when you go out to a match or you get around other people and you talk to them about their equipment, or you talk to them about, hey, I've never seen that holster before. Where'd you get that? You'll get so much more information from a group of 20 or 30 shooters than you will from YouTube or anything else, even though that's, we're kind of ingrained in just Googling things these days or searching it online of like, hey, what's the best holster setup or whatever. You'll get way more information on guns, gear, and how and personal preference and things from going to a match and just talking to folks. Even if that's the only reason you go for, you'll get so much more than just looking it up on YouTube or Google.
So yeah, there are some conversations that I've had with people based on like what they thought 3-gun or 2-gun or USPSA, like what was the thing, based on what they'd seen on YouTube, Google, or even read, like, especially back when mainstream gun magazines were a thing. I still have a copy somewhere of a Guns and Ammo magazine about USPSA where I'm reading it and going, what? No one does that. That's insane. Not to just bag on them, because they've actually gotten better with some of the people they brought on, but yeah, go out, see it, and do it. And then also, like, go into it with the mindset of, even if you're not there to win, if you're just there because, like, one of the great things about competitive shooting is it's the resources of many versus the resources of one in terms of setting up a range day. For example, I don't think any one individual owns, well, that's not really true. It's very uncommon that one individual owns the number of targets and barricades and props that I put in Red October. And yet, for $200, you can go utilize all of those and shoot 8 stages that have that. Or on a local level, you can pay anywhere from like $20 to $40, and the resources of a club or a company that puts on an event, now you get to shoot all those targets and see more of a shakedown of, your equipment and yourself, then you could really arrange by yourself or even with a couple of friends. So that's one of the rifle slings are a great example, because you saw at Red Oktober a very, very not that complicated iteration of of having to sling a rifle. Administratively let an empty gun hang so you can carry 2 plates, and that kind of was not easy or simple for everyone. I just ran another match called the Hard as Hell 2-gun assaulter 2-gun on Valentine's Day, and every stage required the rifle to be slung and unslung administratively at different points. You had to do a lot of different stuff. You had to do pistol reholstering, empty guns, because I don't want to have anyone Glock leg themselves. But and a lot of people learned very, very much, even people who are experienced, when exposed to even more difficulty. Slings are not that big a deal in competitive shooting. We don't require a lot of use of it until we do. You find out things like, hey, QD mounts in an environment where you have to run around a bunch and carry, a 100-pound dummy.
Yeah. That's the best thing to do is, like you guys are saying, just go out and do a competition. Then that's gonna, you're gonna learn what you need. That's the best way to learn, because everybody's a little different.
And I think in these environments, if people go out and just try it, and then they fail, they learn that the value in that failure is exponentially more valuable than that feeling, because it becomes opportunity. And that's
it's been my experience that the shooting environment, the shooting community is very welcoming and encouraging as well. So yeah, you may go out there and you may fail, but you're not going to get a lot of people laughing and pointing and snickering at you at the same time. You're going to get people that give you advice and want to help you and make you better. And I've even seen people loan out their gear to other people to use, during competitions.
All day long. Yeah, it's just very uplifting to be in those.
Well, and the quality of people that it attracts.
Yeah, I think I shot for a year in cowboy action shooting, and I didn't own any of the guns that I was using. Just that was kind of how that club cultures are kind of different everywhere, right? I'm not going to guarantee that you're going to show up to a 3-gun match with nothing and people are going to be strapping stuff on you. Although that's probably going to happen. People, the sport, generally speaking, there's exceptions to everything.
Sure.
But generally speaking, really wants people to get out and compete in it. And the people that you meet are generally good people. I don't know really why. But yeah, it's, even if they're, morally completely bankrupt everywhere else, it seems like on a shooting range, at least, people are cool.
I think they want other people to try out their badass setups and tell them how badass it is what it is.
There's that too, yeah. There's that.
It's all ego. It's all ego driven, But let's talk about Red Oktober, and what someone can expect if they want to go to a Red Oktober. Talk about the setup and the rules and all the goings on. Brian kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to get a little more detailed on it. And Kyle, you've been to one.
Yeah.
Jared, you've been to one. Aaron, you've not been to one, have you? I haven't either.
Well, I think the biggest thing for anybody that's not been would be to read the pre-match briefings. Show up informed. The range officers that are there, the guys that are helping, they're busy. They're running their butts off. They'll gladly stop and answer a question, but they really don't have time to. And ultimately, it slows down the whole process for everybody. It pushes the nights later, the awards later. So do your homework to the best of your ability before you show up. And if you can, jump in there and help. That's probably the biggest thing that I've noticed, is how many people show up and feel like, I paid to be here. I'm going to sit back and BS and be entertained. But ultimately, for a couple different reasons, if you're more engaged, it's to everyone's benefit. You're going to help streamline the process. And then really the tactical advantage, tactical is the wrong word here, the competitive advantage would be that you get to see that course of fire every time somebody shoots. You get to walk through and pace targets and strategize. And it helps you as well as everyone else around you. So just take advantage of that opportunity. That's my 2 cents, but those are the biggest things that I've noticed, and in attending Red Oktober, is that there's so much going on and everybody's so busy that it takes everybody contributing as much as they can to really make it a fun, streamlined process. Is logistically it's a nightmare, and stick with your team and go shoot your courses of fire. Don't stack them all until the end of the first or second day, because for those of you that don't know, we're running multiple courses of fire spread across 2 days. So it might be 8 or 10 or 12 courses that you need to attend within those 2 days. And I've seen where a lot of people, they'll idle back and they'll BS for the first half of the day, and then they're trying to hammer it all out at night in low light conditions, or while other people are trying to clean up their bays. So that's the biggest thing. Be active, be proactive, and engage with the safety officers, the range officers, the other shooters, and just really embrace the camaraderie that comes about it.
That's good advice. So let's talk about, Brian, Red October. What possessed you to start this event?
It comes from being a gun guy all my life, and one of the primary reasons I got into competitive shooting was just being into guns, and the competitive side of it came when I found out that I was at least at it, and it was something I could sort of pour my time into, and my dad and I could do together. But I've always been a gun guy in general, and the initial idea was our club kind of wanted to fill something in an October time frame. We wanted to have a major match. That was how we kind of supported the needs of the club as far as being able to buy targets and et cetera, pay for range staff. Was by revenue from larger events. We wanted something in an October thing, and so I just kind of had this idea that, hey, what if we had a match that was only for AK and sort of Warsaw packed rifles. Initially, I was actually going to run a Mosin match just as a fun thing for a few friends and I, and then it's like, well, we could do a Mosin match, but honestly, that would suck because ain't nobody want to shoot like that much through Mosin. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very few. I do and have, but like that's not that big a deal. And so I said, hey, what if I ran an AK match in that time period? I figured that I could get like 50 people. This was, I think, 2013 or 14, maybe. It's hard for me to remember how many years we're doing this now. But so yeah, let's run an only AK match. Figuring I'd get like 50 to 70 shooters, like a 1 day 6 or 7 stage match, and that would be good for us. And when I kind of brought that idea up to a few people, they said, "Oh, that sounds like actually a pretty awesome idea. You need to talk to Jim Fuller and Rifle Dynamics." They were in Las Vegas. That's like 2 hours from here.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, I know of Jim Fuller. I know of Rifle Dynamics, right? I've seen him on Facebook and YouTube and stuff, and the Panatio videos he did. And like, okay. But I don't know Jim. And as it turned out, like in my circle of people that I knew, it seemed like everybody was like, oh, here's Jim's number. Oh, here's Jim.
Right.
Like, because Jim's just kind of that sort of person.
Yeah.
And so we talked about it at the Rifle Dynamics open house. They do a SHOT Show every year, that there is a SHOT Show. And
First time there hadn't been.
Sounds like a great idea. And basically we want to partner with it. And what it consisted of, especially initially, was essentially putting a name on the event and then some support, like, sponsorship. They've always donated a gun. The first year, I believe, maybe it was the second one, they had a PKM, their shop, PKM.
Yeah.
And it's grown into more of a partnership between Rifle Dynamics and myself, where they're now much more involved with the event side of it, on coordinating demo bays and social media and all those things. And basically, I just run the match, which I'm not going to say I'm good at that, but I've done a decent job so far. And they do a much better job of coordinating with sponsors, vendors, et cetera, than I ever could. But that's why I started doing it. The first year, I planned on having like 60 people, and we had 100 and some. And then it's only grown from there to the point where I think from the second year, the match has filled up to its maximum capacity. Wasn't that much of an AK guy, had one AK. I was an AK guy in the extent that I was a gun guy, and AKs are guns, so you should probably at least be interested in them.
Yeah. Got to show a little interest in them. That's kind of the way
Yeah.
I was. That's what got me started in doing the AK Korner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then found out as a result of it, right? I just kind of figured, oh yeah, like the people that already shoot matches that I know, I know 30, 40 people that I know, and they'll bring some friends, that shoot 3-gun, that shoot USPSA, and have like a Wazzer sitting in the corner they thought was cool, and found out through that there's a whole subculture of AK community and shooters that I had no idea really existed before that.
Yeah.
So
this competition gives them an opportunity to shake the cobwebs off their comm block guns and take them out and run them. But you guys kind of do it a little differently than if you've ever been to an organized competition shoot before, 3-gun or like you say IDPA or something like that. You guys, it's more like a cowboy shoot where it's kind of themed, and people dress. Brian was talking, they dress the parts, and you're carrying
it's
bodies
kind of a
around and stuff like that.
It's kind of a function of just, I think, because it's me as an individual doing this in a large way. I have a lot of people to help me, but when it comes down to what is the tone of the event, what do the stages look like, generally that's me, and that's my perspective on what competitive shooting should sort of look like. So if you see Red October, everything has a theme, and deliberate marksmanship challenges. That's what happens when you have, I'm not the best shooter in the world, but I'm good at it. Designing marksmanship challenges that are suited to the rifle and the people using it, and not too easy, not too hard, but also there's some entertainment value in there. And if you were to look at it, and the matches that I've run, so like Red October, and if you look at Hard as Hell, 3-gun and 2-gun, you might want to play through, let's just say, a campaign level from Call of Duty, the Xbox game, and you might notice there's some similarities. That's what I did for, that's what I did for entertainment, like when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, and this is kind of a continuation of that, except we do it in a safe way where we can do it with real guns. That's why I think personally that it's cool to have a stage that's themed around a hostage rescue, or a stage that's themed around, something like that, a stage where, maybe not every competitive shooting match wants to. Do
you ever do like any historical, like factual, like the Battle of blah blah blah? And
thing. I did a whole match that was that, and it was called the Hard as Hell Heroes 2-gun. It was the last one we ran in 2017, I think. No, 2018. And every stage had a Medal of Honor citation attached to it, named after it. So, like, there was a John Basilone stage where you had to carry a scaled replica of a Browning 1917 machine gun, and because on Guadalcanal, the dude kind of burned his hand together on the water jacket, shooting that thing from the hip, repelling Japanese assaults all night. So we taped a tennis ball to your hand, and you could use the hand, but you had a tennis ball taped to it. So that necessitated some sort of one-handed manipulation. It's a thing I've seen done in classes. So, learning occurred. Same thing with, like, it's obviously not the same thing that happened, but it's inspired by it. And that particular year was kind of designed to also maybe bring some awareness and shed some light on some people like that. Kind of present the best of what we can really,
that's cool,
do in a hard situation.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what else is really cool about Red October that you won't experience at most other matches is how many collectible firearms are actually being used, right? And it's funny to think of AKs as collector's items, but especially your foreign imports, they've skyrocketed in price in recent years. But you'll see somebody running a Type 86 or 56-2 or something that really should just be on display, just a beautiful firearm.
Museum, or that wasn't Red October, but like just because it wasn't ready. But Gary Hughes shooting a Sturmgewehr, I did get to shoot a stage in a match, not Red October, with a STG-44, and it is actually one of the highlights of things I have ever shot, was shooting that gun on a very simple stage.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that you wouldn't normally have, an opportunity to shoot some of these guns, but you have the opportunity. If you go to like Red October or some of these other matches, you get the opportunity to shoot some guns maybe that you've never even dreamt that you'd be able to shoot.
And that's actually going to be even more so this year than it has in the past. And I don't know what I'm supposed to really talk about yet, because that's the subject of the meeting tomorrow. But
let's go ahead and talk about it. Come on.
Yeah. Well, basically, I'm going down, and I'm going to a place called Battlefield Vegas. I've actually never been there. but I've seen what happens there. And basically, the owner of Battlefield Vegas is just interested in this and wants to make it as cool as he can as far as helping with it. That's my understanding.
Oh, nice.
So we're going to see what we can really do. That's another reason why it's kind of, we've run the match in St. George now a bunch, and then we've run 1 year at Pro Gun Club in Las Vegas. I'm actually pretty happy about running this in Vegas because it's much quicker to maybe bring things on a flatbed trailer to Pro Gun Club than it is to St. George. And that's probably all I can say about that. But yeah, there might be some things you get to use that have to be transported on a flatbed trailer.
So you're looking at doing a Red October 2021.
Yeah, well, it's scheduled. I just had kind of the first call about it with Rifle Dynamics actually on Monday, related to kind of just, hey, let's get it started. We already had the dates reserved.
That's good news.
Yeah, it's going to be I believe the 23rd and 24th. It's of October, but I'm terrible about knowing when I'm actually supposed to do things. I just know it's like
Vegas loosening up on their COVID shit. Then is that what?
No, Marty, we're doing a COVID themed Red October, so everybody's going to run it in a gas mask, full on gas mask. It has to be a surplus Soviet gas mask.
I like
with that, and which means that it has to be 40 years old and therefore not work.
Got to wear a full bodysuit.
I have to wonder how many people realize that wear Russian gas masks. A lot of people at Red October. I don't know if anyone shot in a gas mask on purpose. There were definitely people who had them, but I wouldn't wear a gas mask by choice unless I really needed to.
Well, that's what makes it fun. If you with stage, you got to wear a gas mask. That'd be cool. That'd be fun.
That's been done. I haven't done it, and I don't think we could get away with doing that for COVID nonsense.
Bring your own.
Well, call it something else. But anyway,
we
all know what it would mean. But that's good news that you're going to have. I mean, that you're planning on having the Red October for 2021. I'm sure it's going to be in October.
Because I'm going to get inundated with messages about when does it open, when's registration, et cetera, et cetera. Just be patient. So what has to happen for that is previous attendees will be receiving some information about registration soon if they haven't already. Basically, everyone that was signed up and approved into the 2020 match will be notified of it first. And the easiest way for me to control, we try to let people in and approve them into the match based on previous attendance. Just that way people who have been doing it get the first chance to get in it again.
So everybody gets to register after me.
Yeah, exactly. The easiest way for me to control it is just to control who gets notified. So basically there's going to be a secret handshake that you're going to get. And if you share it, then, you share it with someone who's not supposed to have it. Or I'm sorry, but, we're going to, you still come to the match.
Yeah.
Cut off 3 of your fingers or something.
Cool.
But yeah, that's so it is happening, and barring any other cataclysmic things that would prevent it.
So are you going to have vendors set up like Brian was talking about before? You're going to have other companies that are set up there, and you can try their wares and have other competitions.
Absolutely. That's been part of Red October from the very beginning. That to the point where it surprised me. Right, like the first year, I think I had 8 stages, but. So I had 8 stages and a range with like 24 shooting locations and bays, and almost all of them were filled because I had that much interest from vendors just that approached me. I never initially I didn't charge for it just because I didn't have to. We owned the range; it was free.
Well, the fact that you guys are having an event and it's somewhere for people to go, you could probably charge wherever you want to this year. Especially with all the budgets that were saved from SHOT Show.
Now I'm responsible for basically just the match part of things. So what Rifle Dynamics arranges for sponsorship and vendors and stuff is on them because they're better at it than I am, and they actually have the responsibility for making sure that Pro Gun Club and the range in Vegas gets paid.
Sure.
So. But from me, the philosophy I've always had about it is the actual competitor or participant in the event is my customer, and I try to solve and give them the best value that I possibly can. And that means that it's having vendors there, because that's something that I would hugely appreciate if I were competing and participating in it. So, having a vendor there, that's just value added for the consumer. So
talk about the prizes that competitors win. Typically, do you have like prize tables and things like that for the competitors?
And it's
how are those divvied up?
It's kind of a hybrid thing. So it really depends on scheduling this year as well. Not whether or not we'll have a prize table. Obviously, if we have prizes, we'll give them away. And we will have prizes. So what we try to do is recognize sort of the winners get sprinkles theory. But it's winners get sprinkles. Like, it's division winners will walk a prize table by order of, it was by order of finish. And we used to determine that by shoot-offs, where we'd have a head-to-head shoot-off with some standard guns, like, hey, here's two AKs, there's a plate rack at 50 yards, and then a crossover, like pepper popper. Whoever wins a shoot-off bracket gets first choice, then second, third, fourth, fifth for that if you win something. And then the rest of the prizes we have are given away by random draw. And that's really, that's something that's controversial in the competitive shooting community, is how we give away prizes like that, which I think is kind of a dumb thing to be controversial, just because we should do this because we want to shoot. And if there's prizes at the end, that's awesome.
I think anytime people pay, money for a competition to enter, they expect some kind of a trophy or something.
Yeah, that's true. The reality of it now, having run a lot of matches, is also like, if you win a trophy, you win a trophy, but you really, I think, should be paying for what happens, what you're doing on the range and shooting. Because if you look at what goes into traveling to a competitive shooting match, I've done, hundreds now as a competitor. Man, if I wanted a thing, I could just buy it. It's a lot cheaper. And it's 100% certain to get what I want. Because my credit card doesn't care how good I shoot.
That's like going to the fair and spending all that money to win one of those stupid stuffed animals. You could have bought one a lot cheaper.
Yeah, you bought one a lot cheaper. You really did, because you wanted to shoot out the star with the super cool full auto pellet gun in the shooting gallery.
Experience something, in a way that you never experienced it before. But yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that you guys are having that this year and pushing forward with it. Hopefully everything works out. Looking forward to that. I don't foresee any issues with COVID.
This time, I think we're kind of all collectively Biden's president, so it really can't be that much of a problem anymore. Otherwise, it'll look bad. So, sorry, I didn't mean to make it political, but No,
so we were talking a little bit off air, and there are some other AK specific competitions that are out there too. Again, I don't know if they're going to have them this year or not, or what, but it seems like everybody has them in October for some reason.
I don't know why. I'm just going to say that mine was first.
There you go.
But then the other part of it is, so it's not like me versus them. It's not a zero-sum game. Even if we are sort of really close to each other's dates, it does kind of, it makes people have to decide on which one they're going to go to. But, for example, I'm knocking on my wooden desk, but Red October is going to fill up because I only have so many spots, and I know I've always had a wait list for it for the last several years. So, and to me, I don't run Red October or any shooting match because it makes me a giant pile of money and I drive a Land Rover that I paid for with it. Because I have a day job that still isn't Land Rover money, but I have a day job that's a lot less feast or famine than running a match where if I say the wrong thing on the Talking Lead AK Korner podcast, everyone decides I'm an asshole and leaves. But now I do these competitions because I think that it's something that's good overall for people to do, and it's something that needs to happen. I have a personal kind of vested, driven interest in people being good at shooting and competing. Competing is part of being good at shooting. I think it's kind of a necessary part in marksmanship. So if you can't get into Red October, but you really want to shoot an AK in a match, shoot Kalash Bash, then shoot Red October Cold War, then shoot any number of other things. It's good that there are more. I don't view it as a competitive event. It would be even more useful.
But the fact that everybody's running in October, to me, makes no sense. It's just like that. It's you're competing for the same crowd. So Knowing
Yeah,
that Red
it
October is the first, and they always do it in October, then if I'm doing Kalash Bash or if I'm doing Kalashtober or whatever they're called, I would pick another month.
I would too, personally, if it were me. But I don't want to, I know the people that run these events. I don't think that's it. I don't think it was necessarily their biggest choice to say, oh, yes, we're going to do this to compete with Red October in October.
Yeah.
So in Kalash Bash's case, I actually do have personal insight on that because I was registered to shoot it. And last year it was going to be, I think, in April. And then that's right when, things started getting, you couldn't travel for cars, flights getting canceled. We didn't know what it was. Back when we even I was thinking, man, this might be something bad that I had already decided I wasn't going to go because I didn't know enough about how bad.
Yeah.
And I'm in, at the time I figured I was in personal contact with like a dozen people that this could, maybe kill. So I just figured, hey, I'm just going to not do it.
Well, in January, oh my gosh, back previous January with SHOT Show. Yeah.
They didn't have a they didn't know either, so they, I think, probably wisely postponed the match from April into October. And I think it was more a question of, they didn't want to run it in October at all. They wanted to run it in April.
Sure.
When they had to roll it back, they had to pick a date that was far enough that they figured that they'd be safe to run the match. And also work around whatever other local concerns they have with range access, because in addition, I can say that because of all the other stuff in the competitive shooting world that got rescheduled, there was a major competition shooting match every weekend in October in Texas alone, like between Vortex Shooter Source 3-gun, Kalash Bash, and a couple others that I wish I could remember. It just happened. I don't know why they decided to keep the October date this year. Maybe because it worked out for them, and maybe they thought that Red October wasn't happening again this year because of a previous cancellation.
Yeah.
It is kind of usually when an event goes away for a year, you can generally assume that it's kind of dead. So if they thought that, I wouldn't necessarily blame them either. Then the other one that's happening in October is the Red October Cold War. I don't run that. That has nothing to do with me, other than I told them it was cool to use the name because I know the people there. It's at Rio Salado. That all they've announced so far is October 2021. They are going to be announcing the date soon. I just got a text from them today.
What state is that in?
That's in Mesa, Arizona. So Rio Salado Sportsman's Club.
Okay.
But the thing is also, when it comes to matches in Phoenix, specifically that area, they can fill the matchup with people from Phoenix.
Yeah.
Just that.
Well,
something to do
Jim's
that
in Phoenix now. Is he going to?
He is now too. Yeah. He's, as far as I know, he's not that involved with him. I talked to him a little bit last year when he started Fuller Phoenix about doing something like Red October in Phoenix with him, and I said I'd be happy to. And there's actually already a thing. It's Red October Cold War. It's already in October. It's not like Red October in that I don't think there's a lot of vendor presence in the same way that Red October or Kalash Bash have them. It is primarily based around just shooting the stages. And I can say that if your only competitive experience and gun handling experience is Red October, you really want to understand the differences between what we do at my Red October and at Red October Cold War, because they have different rules and standards for gun handling that are you might get disqualified for more administrative stuff because you don't understand how a typical competitive shooting range works. Red October is pretty, I don't want to say loose, but it's very practical in its approach to gun handling and firearms safety, without too much concern for what other organizations have done.
And it goes back with what Kyle said is, know the competition that you're going to be shooting beforehand. That way,
pretty much.
You're
and
not
it's
jacking
things
up when you get there.
And it's things off of the stage as well. There's not really that big a difference between shooting a stage at Red October Cold War and shooting a stage at the original, Red October. The difference is what's going to be happening administratively when you're expected to tape, and where and how you can carry your rifle. You, for example, require chamber flags at Red October because I personally don't think that they're helpful. I think it's just it's a thing that enables me to treat a gun like it's not loaded, to break the first rule. Just that's my personal philosophy. However, if your gun doesn't lock to the rear, which most AKs don't, without something different in them, you have to have a chamber flag inserted, for example. The place where you can take your rifle out of a case and carry it to a stage. If you're not in the right area, you can get disqualified for a gun handling kind of procedure thing.
Right.
I don't
It'd be a
love
shame
it,
to get
but
disqualified for something like that. And
you
you pay
have
all
to
that
play the
money.
game.
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah, it's just one of the things I could rant about, and I try to keep it. I'm guilty of going off on tangents, so I'm trying to be better. But yeah, people in the competitive shooting world,
Really, man,
organizations, use this capital S safety. Like I call it big S or capital S safety. Well, we can't do that because safety. And they're more procedures that people thought made us safe, but in reality, it's like an administrative kind of almost, I would say, trivial thing. It's not that I'm saying that we should only ever play by big boy rules or anything like that, but it's silly to watch someone, for example, a friend of mine come to USPSA Nationals, Czech Republic, and have his pistol caliber carbine in a gun case, and he had it at the kind of the squad table, not a safe area. He had the gun vertical and unzipped the gun case and was disqualified for doing that because he was not in the right place to unzip his gun. It still had a chamber flag inserted. It was still pointed at the sky, but per the administrative etiquette procedural rules of that organization, that's unsafe gun handling, and he's disqualified.
Right.
I look at things like that and I say, okay, I think there's a better way, and I'm not hindered by, a 25,000 member organization. Sorry, my dogs are coming down, and so. But yeah, not hindered by a 25,000 person organization and a board of directors that have to approve the rules, and 20 years of precedent in this is how the rules have always worked. So if I'm going to change a rule, I can just decide to change the rule because I think it makes more sense.
It's good to be the boss.
But anyway, yeah, it is, and my rule book is an editable Google Doc that I can literally change while I'm looking at the shooter, deciding no, specifically for you, it says this isn't okay.
Right.
No, that's a joke.
And I'm going to be the boss now, and we're going to jump into our listener questions now.
Yeah,
because we got a lot of them. So if you guys could go to Instagram, the post that I made, Facebook, the post that I made, kind of browse through those questions, pick your favorite one or two questions while I take the first one here. So I'm going to go to the post I did on Instagram. And if you guys shared it, go to your post and see if you've got any questions on your post. So I'm going to Instagram first, and we're just going to scan through here. I'm going to read a few. It says, Pew Pew RN, do you run extended magazine release and charging bolt knobs? Anybody?
Yeah, I'll touch on that. So the extended mag release is fine. It's unnecessary. I have a couple friends that run extended bolt charging handles, and they're very good at them. I found, though, in my training that it actually hinders me because I get used to reaching up and grabbing this big knob, and when I move over to another rifle that doesn't have that, I miss my stroke. Because on an AK, oftentimes we're rocking it and reaching up underneath. We're not actually visually seeing what we're doing. So,
depending on your shooting, like if you are going to use it on one gun that you're going to use a lot, you really should just make sure it's common across almost everything. Like there are certain differences, and it depends on how good you are at engaging the conscious mind while you're shooting because something's different. And that's kind of skill dependent, right? Like I can shoot all sorts of weird and different things and guns that have different controls and shoot them in a high pressure environment and not really screw up manipulation. That's from 12 years and like 1 million rounds and achieving like a Grand Master classification to the point where fundamentals of marksmanship are not a conscious thing for me anymore. So I can devote more attention to being able to do the weird different thing that's on the gun, or looking at it in value for the rest of anything you would do with a gun. For example, if we're talking about fighting, not having to think about how to shoot a gun is really makes it easier to solve problems that you might have elsewhere. But anyway, extended magazine release on an AK, if you're talking about a standard configuration, for those planning just listening, I am now holding up an AK-74. The way that I reload a standard AK, the magazine release is pretty much big enough. I don't think it really matters if you're going to run the standard Rock and Lock magazine release. The extended charging handle, it can be helpful, but the charging handle on a regular AK-74 AKM is big enough. You can gain a significant advantage if you put a charging handle on the left side of the gun or on the support side, just so you don't have to reach under or reach over. But that's a pretty drastic modification, and it's not something that's common. Like, one of the reasons that AK looks pretty stock that I just pulled up is because I leave AKs fairly vanilla, more because sometimes I go places where they hand me a regular AK, and I'd like to not be completely confused by it.
Yeah.
So the answer is avoid them. They're unnecessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, either avoid them or make it common. Like, if you need to do an empty gun reload, like a Galil Ace charging handle, it's faster than reaching over or under the gun. Just, it's better. Just evaluate your values, right? Is this something you're only going to do a little bit for competition purposes, or is this something you're going to apply to all the guns?
Nice plug for a sponsor there, IWI USA, by the way. Appreciate that.
And to that point, if we for just a moment, even though this is a competition episode, just disregard the competitive aspect and put yourself in an adverse environment where it's really, really cold and your hands are numb, your fingers are numb, and you're going to run that AK. It's I've heard it said by some, it's a gross motor skill platform. Why would you need to exaggerate those controls when they're big enough? And Aaron and I kind of found that out for ourselves when we were training, and it was like single digits as far as temperature goes, and it's cold, and you can still run the AK just fine with a stock control. So it's just opinion, but if you can really run the stock platform, then keep it stock. It doesn't have to be fancy.
Yeah, I'll be the first to say that features and gizmos and gadgets are really cool when you see them online and you see other people run them and stuff. But I cannot agree with you more, Brian, that it is, if you run a gun with a customization on it, and Kyle also said this, if you're really going to screw yourself up when you go to a gun without it. So, for those of you who, and we'll go kind of towards the pistol side, if you carry one gun one way and you have a competition gun that you shoot another way, with a different grip or different trigger or things like that, what are you training with most, and are you competent with both of them? Those things really do matter. I will also say that you cannot just spend your way to winning a match, right? You've really got to put in the training. So I think that's much more important than the gizmos or gadgets you can apply to the gun.
There you go. I think we've over-answered this. I think we've over-answered it. Let's go to our next question. Sinister Fist, is the AK shooter looked down upon at 3-gun comps? Is there still the underlying culture that believes this weapon is inferior? Well, I think more to what you said earlier, it's not that it's looked down upon, it's just that it doesn't meet some of the requirements.
Yeah, there's still so a lot of places, well, I wouldn't say that most places, but there are places where you'll go, like if you shoot a match that I run in general, you're allowed to shoot an AK and use whatever ammo you want, because I know and have tested it, and I don't, I know it's not going to hurt anything. You can shoot the gun. I will say that, are you going to get looked down on for shooting AK? It depends on the people that are there. Every event is going to be a little bit different in terms of just the personalities that you're with and that you squad with. Generally, no. You might have a couple people that, frankly, I think are just kind of, within the competitive shooting world, that kind of have a little bit of a toxic mindset about it. Like, you're not here using the normal things that I want to use, that everyone uses to shoot well, and therefore, you're kind of wasting my time by just shooting in front of me. It's not a common mindset, mind you. It's pretty rare, but yeah, they might have an issue with it. But generally, it's you paid an entry fee just like everyone else. They're gonna just sort of leave you alone. In terms of looking down on the AK, like I will say, if you show up at a lot of matches with an AK, knowing what I do know about the gun and designing matches that were not at all designed around AKs, like you might show up and there are things that you cannot do with it and you cannot hit with it. For example, a good friend of mine did a really good write-up on really measuring what an AK-M and what an AK-102 would do, I believe, a 5.56 Russian import AK. And, you know, at 100 yards, when we measure them from machine rest, like we're talking anywhere from 6 to 9 MOA on the gun on real big, like with the ammo that we can get, and even on a 5.56 AK with good ammo. There are targets that I put in matches that you're not going to be able to hit, especially on a first shot. Just mechanical precision of the gun. It's not that you're looked down upon. It's just that we kind of looked at the challenge and said, hey, this is a realistic challenge. You might have to shoot a small target at longer distance. Like, so, you know, for example, the targets of the hardest L2 gun were 8-inch plates at 200 and 300 yards.
But if you go to Red October or Kalash Bash or one of these other ones, you're going to be a hero. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like
that's why he started it.
that's the primary reason, right?
Yeah.
Like, I do not try to. Red October is designed around everything you might ever need to do with a gun. It's designed around you to be able to do it with an iron-sighted AK that you install the barrel a little bit crooked on. Like, it's about how well you can do everything, not about whether or not you can even do it to start with.
Very good. Did you guys scan through the questions? Did you see any that jumped out at you you'd like to answer?
Yeah. So, John Adams 3, I think.
Yep.
What suggestions do you have for someone brand new to AK competition? Is Red October something that a newbie can compete in, or is it more of a Super Bowl of AK competitors? It is absolutely something that a newbie can compete in, to the extent where there are things that I would estimate that most shooters at Red October only ever shoot Red October as far as competition goes. So yeah, I would estimate that by competitive shooting standards, most people at Red October are kind of newbies. In other words, they don't shoot a lot of other matches. Red October and Kalash Bash might be the two matches that they shoot. And so if you're kind of new to it all, now Red October is a great place if you can get in, which is, you know, I hate to say, but I have a limited amount of spots in the match that you can get into. So, but yeah, if you can get there, Red October is absolutely friendly to a newbie, to the point where we even, you know, different from other events, you're allowed to and can receive coaching from other shooters if you work that out with them, right? Random people aren't going to be, you know, yelling at you what to do. But the ROs can also help you help coach you through, just to make sure that they won't help you get the best score, because if you're relying on coaching from another person, you're not probably going to win. But they will help you have the best score that you might possibly shoot, and they're going to help you kind of complete everything without major catastrophes, and they're going to help coach you to keep you safe from doing something that, you know, maybe it's a high-pressure environment compared to what you're used to. You're maybe treading water mentally. They're going to be watching for that and making sure that, like, there's no weirdness as far as muzzle direction, turning around, pointing guns when they're not supposed to, so that everyone stays safe and that everyone has an enjoyable experience. So absolutely, if you're a newbie, go to this. And I would say the same thing holds true for Kalash Bash, just based on the secondhand experience I have with it and knowing the people who put it on.
Good answer. I like that. What about you other guys? You seen any questions there from our lead heads that you want to jump in on?
Well, there are a couple that I'm really pondering right now.
Okay.
Brian, do you do any reloading?
Reloading? Like,
yeah.
So you got your own questions.
Yeah, like making your own ammunition. Well, I asked because your owner here, or one of your listeners here, Brett Bedow, where did it go?
Read his name and his question.
Okay. I lost it here.
But go ahead and answer his question, and then you come back to it.
So on reloading?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I asked because, all right, Brett Bedow asked, is the AK forgiving platform to reload for? Yes, ammo used to be cheap and plentiful. Is it now? And that's interesting, because the 7.62x39 cartridge is a lot of the reason why the AK is so reliable. The design of the cartridge in itself. Yep. I think most of us know reloading isn't any more cost effective at this point in time. I mean, it's really not. You may as well just buy preloaded ammunition if you can find it. And to to put the effort into reloading something that you're going to go out and expel as many rounds out of as you would with an AK or another semi-automatic, to me doesn't make sense. The only thing that I would reload for would be long-range precision. But Brian, have you ever tried to reload 7.62 by 39?
I have, yeah, a little bit, maybe like 150 rounds, maybe ever. No, more than that. Is the AK forgiving to reload for? Yeah, in the same way that the AK is sort of forgiving in that it's really overgassed, and 7.62 by 39 kind of wants to feed and eject and extract because it is tapered the way that it is. To the point where I have made, but the other problem also, so when we refer to the AK, that means a lot of different things. So like my AKM built on a Polish kit with a AK builder barrel built right is very forgiving. It's really overgassed. So it'll run even some really light stuff to the extent that I made like subsonic 124 grain bullets that ran the gun. I wouldn't want to run it all the time, but doing the math, that's a 124 grain bullet going 1,000 feet a second. That's pretty light. That's like half of what it's supposed to do if we're looking at M43, and the gun ran it. What's not forgiving in 7.62 by 39 is actually reloading it and being able to find stuff for it.
Right.
Brass is the hard part. So either you have to find brass-cased ammunition or just brass component parts that are boxer primed so you can pop out the primer with a regular die, or you have to do what's called Mexican match ammo. I don't know why it's called that, but that's colloquially what it's known as. And that is taking primed steel cases, basically by taking already existing ammo, pulling the bullet off, and then loading whatever you want, which obviously isn't cost effective because you already had a perfectly good round of loaded ammo there. Why pull the bullet? The only reason to do it is if you had some other compelling reason to reload, like you wanted to put in a tracer projectile, or you wanted to make subsonic ammo, or you're trying to get more mechanical precision out of the gun. And I'm just going to say it ahead of time, like the ammo is not the problem. The problem is AKs were not designed to be a precise rifle, so you're going to fight a lot of other problems before you get down to the ammo. It's kind of the reverse of ARs. ARs are more about ammo. But anyway, and another part of it is brass. Everything in 7.62 by 39 is brass sucks if you're reloading. Because also, if you've seen an AK like eject, you notice that the cases like go into the next county. It's pretty bad about mangling that stuff up. So it's hard to find good brass to reload, and once you shoot it a couple times, like it's pretty haggard.
So another question from Austin Whalen is, what kind of ammunition you prefer for competition?
Yes. So for me, it's Red Army Standard because I'm going to shoot in competition what I'm training with, and that's what I shoot. So it really comes down to that exactly, I think, is the better answer is go to the match with whatever you've been training with, because your ballistics are going to change when you change ammunition.
Yeah.
So yours is Red Army Standard.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's going to vary rifle to rifle. A lot of people
They're asking
will just buy.
They're asking specifically what you prefer.
Right. So
what do you prefer?
I've done my homework, and my guns prefer Wolf.
Okay. Wolf.
Jared, Wolf black box or Wolf military box?
Wolf military box.
Okay.
Then Wolf black box. And then beyond that, I think the Red Army Standard red box, and then the white box well behind that. So that's in order of the successes that I've had with my rifles.
With what your rifles
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, the Red Army Standard red box, hollow point.
There is a difference.
Bullets.
Yeah.
Yeah. New Red Army Standard, I think, is Vimpel, isn't it? It's imported.
It is.
The old was something. Yeah, the old Red Army Standard wasn't quite as good. The new stuff, the red box, I think, is pretty good stuff. Same as Golden Tiger, I think it was.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So I think you've answered this question before, Kyle, but FPS Murdoch wants to know, says, Kyle, I know you run the AK exclusively in competitions. My question is, what made you gravitate to the AK platform when many, if not most, run ARs?
So I was
simple-minded.
Yeah, pretty much, man. I don't,
It's what he got
my
free.
meat hands. Well, yeah, no, that actually is the right answer. I was raised by a prepper before that was even a term. Myself, all of my siblings, we were all given an AK, really a Type 56, a Chinese variant, when we turned 18. And I remember the first time I ran a local match with it getting made fun of by everybody there because they were running LMTs and Noveskis and these beautiful $3,000 ARs. And I was broke as a joke, man, running a slanted front sight Mac 90, which is actually the only Chi-Com Occam in existence now. I had Brian rebuild that gun for that same reason. But yeah, it's what I learned on. It's what was available to me. Magazines were plentiful. Ammunition was plentiful. It made sense. And now with so many different products hitting the market, it really is a great option. It used to be a neat option. It was its own little niche, trendy sort of thing. But now it's a viable option. All of the concerns that we've had before are being addressed now. Now, Brian brought up a good point about the mechanical precision of it. We don't have to beat that with. I actually do want to delve into that a little bit, Brian. We need to go shoot. We can do this off air. But I think for me, I'm going to shoot what I train with, what I use for home protection, what I carry in my truck, and that happens to be an AK. So that's why I've gravitated towards that.
Okay.
It's a good reason.
So, if you guys spot any other questions that you'd like to answer, scan through there. Facebook, Instagram. I know some of you guys reposted. You got questions on your sites that.
Let's see. Traveling Ginger. What company for mag holders? G-code holsters seems to be the best, but what about Kydex? As for rails, Sure Shot, Zenitco, Krebs Custom, Midwest Industries. So
None of the above.
Yeah, I don't actually. So this is one of those things on the AKs. What company for rails? Don't know. None of my AKs have a rail other than like the Ultimac top rails.
Occam Defense Solutions, the Merc.
That is the honest answer. I mean, I don't mean to be stepping all over you, Aaron and Jared, but I'd love to answer that question if you guys don't mind, because I have tried all the above. I really have. So Brian Keeney, Occam Defense, is one of my sponsors, and I met them and got to know them because when the Merc product hit the market, that was the answer. That was like, holy crap, I'm so glad somebody's finally doing this right. This product needed to be out, and everything you just mentioned was out prior to that. But they just kept missing on a couple different points. And so Brian put out, pre-order, the first 200 available. And so I signed up for that at that time. And at some point there was a problem with production. And he contacted me and asked, hey, would you like a refund? We're kind of, starving for parts right now. And I told him, no, man, I fully believe in what you're doing. I just need it in time for Red October. And so our relationship kind of evolved from there. But it was because I believed in his product. Occam Defense Merc truly is the finest rail out there. And like I said, I've tried the RS Regulate. I've tried the Midwest Industries. I've tried the Ultimac. And not to take away from what those products did at the time, they were the best thing available, but they really missed on the points that the Merc has touched on. The free floating design, the heat mitigation, being able to field strip the weapon without moving your optics. They nailed it.
They're really it's also the only rail that really worked to mitigate the heat. Every other rail I've tried, if you run the gun hard, it still gets hot as hell.
Yeah. I haven't, despite having been at now 2 events that I hosted Brian and Occam at, I haven't shot one of their guns or really done much because I'm in the middle of these events. I'm always.
We got to fix that.
I know. Dude, I've never shot an AK match. I've never shot an Occam Defense gun that I can remember because I don't have like a chicken with my head cut off, making sure everything works at the event. But just from what I do know about, so that rail specifically solves one of the biggest, the biggest, like, oh, this is uncomfortable thing is heat. So if it solves the heat problem, that's huge to me. This is news to me about like AK stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then free floating it, that alone solves so many like issues of like, that's where AK mechanical precision, one of the things where I think like, oh, we've got a way to free float a handguard. Now I haven't seen how that affects mechanical precision of just take a gun out and shoot it. But
well, Brian, when you were referencing the accuracy and things that the AK just can't do, and you were talking about the group size. My ODS 1775s, both of them are if I do my job, they're a 1 MOA or even sub 1 MOA guns, and it's just phenomenal how accurate they are. And Aaron, we did a 2-day AK class in July of last year here in Texas, and there were, I think, 6 1775s there, and it was phenomenal how accurate those guns were or are, and I think that's a huge testament to the Merc.
Nice, yeah, that's
yeah, it absolutely is. And guys that are listening, like Aaron touched on earlier, there's a lot of products that look really cool out there on the market, and AKs are hot right now. You can't open Instagram or a major gun magazine and not see a tricked out AK. They're cool, but most of that crap's unnecessary. I mean, really, if you're going to try and build an AK and run with it, there's only a couple things you need. You need a good trigger, and there's lots of good options out there. I think ALG is the best, but that's your first thing. Get a good trigger.
Somebody's going to get one today. Somebody's getting one today.
Yeah, somebody is.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Yeah, send that out. They'll need it.
So let's do finish the answer, and then we're going to do one more question, and then we're going to pick winners.
So start with the trigger. Good trigger. That's absolutely critical. A good way to mount a red dot on top of it. There are other options. It just doesn't absolutely have to be a Merc, but a Merc checks that box, and a good handguard simultaneously. Some sort of extended safety. That's a bit of controversy, or a point of controversy for a lot of people, but I believe that Krebs or Century Arms or any of these other ones are great solutions and absolutely necessary, just due to the lack of ergonomics of that mechanism on the platform. But if you get those three things going on, it's leaps and bounds above what the AK was just 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I wouldn't worry too much about anything beyond that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and especially depending on the environment you're in, like Red October, a good trigger, and then comply with the division rules, and maybe look at a muzzle device depending on what's already on it. Like if it's an AK-74, it doesn't really need a change. 7.62 gun, it can help, but it's not really a big separator. I would say a trigger and a way to make sure that whatever sights you have are optimized. If that's irons, do some work on the rear sight, opening up the rear notch and dog ear in the corners of it if you're stuck, because a lot of the divisions at Red October are irons. And if it's a red dot, man, it's got to be a ruggedized, durable mounting system so that you're not having point impact shifts, because the targets are somewhat generous, but some of the optic mounts I've seen on AKs give you a generous point of impact shift on they're more generous than the targets. So anyway, all
right.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up a muzzle device. That's also, in my experience, a big thing for new shooters, especially somebody that doesn't have great form. 7.62 by 39 does have a little bit more push than your typical AR. So, yeah, a good muzzle device. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're not going to buy skill, but you can buy some performance by mitigating the amount of muzzle rise that the gun has just by redirecting gas. Like, it's free real estate. Why wouldn't you use it? And for muzzle devices, for 7.62 14 millimeter thread, yeah, I got nothing. I can't remember.
Okay. We haven't talked much about the 5.45. Tandem Dooley was asking if I was choosing a new competition AK, what would the best one be to get, and why is it in 5.45? I think he's made up his mind.
Yeah, well, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. That's funny.
Is there an Occam defense gun in 5.45? Because I know parts kits and parts for mine right now. Not yet. So if it's going to be in 5.45, that's if it's going to be in 5.45, your options are somewhat limited now. It used to be, I'd say it's an Arsenal or Rifle Dynamics, but I don't even know if RD is doing 5.45 guns very much right now because of lack of availability of the stuff connected to it.
Exactly.
One of the nice things about 5.45 is, it's kind of like a nerfed 5.56. It's even the standard pressure ammo is pretty light compared to 55 grain ball, and the gun was designed to shoot fast because it was kind of designed in that, like, maybe doctrinally more like a submachine gun than a rifle. But I would actually say that the muzzle brake on the regular AK-74, that's a Bulgarian muzzle brake I'm holding up right now, it's actually more compensation than you even really want on the gun. It actually pushes it down when you pull the trigger. But a 5.45 gun, probably the best thing you can do is
not bad if you can get it right.
Pick the gun that you can find, and you might have to do work on it. Fortunately, we love 5.56 and 223 in the U.S., and if you don't want an AK in that caliber, which I understand not wanting, but fortunately, if you can get 1/2 by 28 threads on a 5.45 gun, you have nigh on infinite muzzle device options because that's an AR muzzle thread. Yeah. So whatever muzzle brake seems to work for 5.56 works pretty good on 5.45 too, because it's very similar as far as cartridge design.
Okay. All right, let's go to this is the last one. What brand of magazines, this is from Reeves89, what brand of magazines do you prefer for competition and magazine capacity?
So I run open glass, so I always start with a 40 round mag. I don't reload with them. They're a little awkward, a little cumbersome, and out of the norm, but I always start with a 40 and kick it out and go from there. There are only a few options out there. The best one, in my opinion, is a Circle 10 waffle mag. But beyond that, I use US Palm mags going back to I'm going to practice and shoot with the same thing. And so I would hate to take a nice $100 Bakelite out to the range and hammer it as many times as we practice. So I'm going to use the same mag I'm practicing with as in that competition and save my Bakelites or my mil spec for shit hits the fan. Those will stay in a plate carrier. I don't need to go beat those up to save a couple seconds and pat my chest at a match. Right. US Palm mags work really well, and you beat the shit out of them, and they're cheap and plentiful.
Yeah, I take that's basically I'd start with. It depends on the division that you're shooting at an AK specific match. If you are shooting an AK in a different format of competition, there's usually not a restricted magazine capacity. Is that one of those puff gun 60 rounders?
Oh, I'll talk about it. Go ahead.
Okay. So there's usually not a magazine capacity restriction. So either a 45 round RPK magazine, either 7.62 or 5.45. And yeah, the Circle 10 is the best version of that we've used, at least to start with. And you generally won't have to reload with that. And then for 30 round mags, well, for 7.62, there's a lot of good 30 round mags that I've seen. All the ones that I've used, from US Palm, X-Tech, even the Magpul ones that people like to bag on, they still have worked for everything I've done. In 5.45, that's a harder question to answer because there's not as many mags, but Circle 10s are the most reliable. P mags are the most accessible, to the point where I would find some magazines that I know are going to work all the time. If that's Circle 10s because I can find them in 5.45. Have 4 or 5 of them, and rather than use them all for everything, I'd actually take a little bit different approach than Kyle does. In practice, I'll use PMags or something where that I know that the magazine might have a stoppage just because it might not be as good of a magazine as less common, either a Bakelite or a Circle 10. But if I can find mags that work, I'm going to set those aside to use in the competition, so I save the wear, et cetera, on them, and then I'll practice with PMags or something that, even if it's not reliable, even Tapcos or ProMags, which are not as reliable as the other ones that I've seen. In practice, if I have a stoppage, it doesn't cost the same money investment and mental and time investment as they would failing in a match.
That's cool. Two opposing opinions. I like that. I don't like everybody agreeing on my show all the time, so that's good.
I hate it when
So what I'm holding here is I've got a 60-round windowed magazine. This is from American Tactical. It's the Schmeiser S60 AK-47. So I haven't tried it yet. I don't know the reliability or anything like that, but I know it's a booger bear to load. It'll break your thumb trying to load that son of a bitch. But I'm anxious to go try it. So Kyle, you might want to start with 60 rounds,
one
buddy.
Thing, with quad stack things like that, because I used the Surefire one back when it first came out for AR-15s, and I have a puff gun 5.45 60 rounder that was totally not smuggled from Russia.
As you wink.
I would just say that they're not all created equal. I haven't tried the Schmeiser quad stack magazine because I haven't had a reason to. In an AR-15, there's a 60-round PMAG D60, and it works great.
Well, I've got the AR one of these also.
Yeah, I haven't tried the AR one, not because it's bad, but just because I haven't had a reason to. It's compelling. A D60 is $120, and they work. I have 3 of them, and none of them have problems or have had problems. They suck even more to load, probably, but
I haven't tried loading it with a load assist
magazine,
but doing it with your thumb, my thumbs are still sore, and I loaded this about 5 days ago. But what's your
if
caveat?
I may, one thing to be careful of with the quad stack magazines of that type, they can work. The problem you run into that will cause stoppages is impact on the bottom of the magazine. So you can monopod on them from the prone position, but one of the reasons why they were kind of neglected is you hit the base of it, and that whole stack of rounds kind of jumps up and down. You lose some spring tension, and the bullets inside of the magazines just like go and stack all weird like, and that's what can cause stoppages. That's one of the reasons why this is kind of secondhand, maybe myths and legends, but I do know that Magpul was working on a 60-round quad stack magazine. And I did hear that basically that was the one problem they couldn't solve, was what happens if you go prone really hard on the magazine. They couldn't beat that inertia problem.
Yeah.
So maybe it's something to keep using. Absolutely. If it works, just to understand that, I have to tune and adjust my manipulations around that to negate a malfunction.
Right. So those are good questions. We got a lot more good questions. Stephen Morgan, Shane Hammond, Matt Cousins, Matthew Lottie, Brad Reynolds, all you lead heads. Ora Alplanalp, the guy that we can't say his last name. All great questions, Jerry Black. If we didn't get to your question this episode, you'll have an opportunity next episode. So just re-ask your questions. If we didn't answer them this episode, you can shoot me an email, talkinglead@gmail.com. If you've got questions, or if you've got maybe a guest that you'd like us to have on the show, shoot me an email, talkinglead@gmail.com, and we'll get to those. So now, guys, let's do some giveaways. So we've got the SEAL 1 complete gun care kit that we're going to be giving away to a lucky lead head. So let's do that first, and I'm going to let Kyle go through and pick a winner for the SEAL 1.
Oh, Dickie the Third. Oh, man. Well, that's because he has a great name. Dickie the Third, SEAL 1.
Now, you're not related to Dickie the Third, right?
Well, that's actually my other alias. But
okay. All right, so Dickie the Third, shoot me an email, talkinglead@gmail.com, stating that you won the SEAL 1 complete gun care kit with your address and all that, and I'll make sure that we have Dwight send that to you. So next up is going to be the Mission First Tactical dump tray, and we're going to let our guest, Brian, pick who that winner is going to be.
I'm just looking through the questions on the Instagram comment here. Or?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're at.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm looking at Instagram. I'm looking at Enamel Pie.
Enamel Pie. Okay. He was following us today on our live.
Put my phone and said that one. So
very good. I like random. We like random here. So Enamel Pie, you have won the Mission First Tactical dump tray. So shoot me an email, talkinglead@gmail.com. Let me know you won the dump tray. Give me your address, contact info, all that, and we'll get Dave over there to send that to you. So the trigger, boom, boom, boom. The Gosley ALG, the enhanced with the lightning bow. And I think this is the one I've got in that one over there. I've got this in one of those. It's really nice. I like this trigger.
Best trigger you could put in an AK, and I wish they made one that was that price for an AR.
Oh,
Agreed.
yeah, right.
Outstanding trigger.
Yeah, for the price, you definitely can't beat it. So
I didn't beat it in an AK.
how should we go
You
about?
can't beat it, period. I've tried.
How should we go about picking this winner? I'm torn.
Trial by combat, but that would be hard to.
Trial by combat.
Which one of your listeners had the most questions?
Well,
Let's see.
there's several that had asked several questions.
Oh, wait. It's me, Dickie the Third.
It's
Or Brett Badow.
Let's do this. Pick a number between 1 and 30.
All right.
And I'm going to go down. I'm going to just count starting from Facebook, and I'm going to go down that number. So, you got like a random number generator?
Let's see here.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Between 1 and 30.
Ding, 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 ding.
Generate me a number.
18.
18. All right. I'm starting at and this is the people who have left comments as of March 9th. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I'm going to go to Instagram to the post. What am I on? 11?
Yep.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Did you say Brett Badow earlier?
I did. That's one of the guys that's commented twice.
Yep.
That's who it was. So, Brett Badow, Beddow. Shoot me an email, talkinglad@gmail.com. You are the winner of the Geisley ALG AK trigger it's enhanced with the lightning bow, which, according to our panel of judges, is the best trigger you can get for your AK. So, there you go. Congratulations to our winners. Shoot me the emails, like I said. To win, you have to listen to the show. You have to participate. You have to share. You have to comment. I do not contact our winners. So if you're not listening to the show, you will never know that you have won. So hopefully Brett Badow listens to the show, which I know he does. And the other guys do too. So I don't think we're going to have any problems with them claiming their prizes. But we're going to give away another AK trigger next episode, another seal package, and another dump tray, and who knows what else that we're gonna have to give away. I've got some AR triggers I'm going to be giving away during our normal show from Geisley. We've got some great guests coming up, so make sure you tune in for those. And then, the next AK Corner, we've got some good stuff planned too. So, guys, thank you so much for taking the time. We've lost half our panel. They've dropped off. We outlasted Brian Keeney at Occam Defense Solutions. Go show him some love. Let him know how much you appreciate him supporting the show. Aaron dropped off. Jared dropped off. Again, go show them some love on their social medias. Let them know how much you appreciate them. Kyle, thank you so much for hanging in there for the duration and for introducing us to our good buddy Brian with Red Oktober, Brian Nelson. Brian, thank you for being on. You're definitely a wealth of knowledge, and I would love to have you back on another episode again. I could listen to you all day. I mean, I was just going on and on and on, and I wish we had more time.
Well, Marty, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Anytime. You guys are always welcome back. Brian, where can they get in touch with you on social medias if they want to get in touch with you?
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram just as Brian Nelson Practical Shooter. And I will say that I'm pretty intermittent on social media stuff. That's just, I use it as a tool for, kind of bringing me some satisfaction. So it's kind of infrequent, but you will see some stuff on there that will help you get better at shooting. Maybe.
Hopefully.
That's the intent, at least. I try to keep it to, things that are helpful and, relevant and based on experience in performance shooting. So.
And Kyle, give your contact info.
I'm on Instagram. That's KMO101. So K_MO101 at Instagram.
good. And of course, Red October. Where can they go get all the info that they want for the Red October?
That'll be on rifledynamics.com/Red October. That is October, Oktober. So like Oktoberfest, but slightly less beer.
Very cool. And if you lead heads know of some competitions maybe that we're not aware of that are specifically for the AK-47, or maybe another competition that will allow the AK, shoot me an email, talkinglead@gmail.com. We'll give it a mention on the next episode.
Actually, there is one that I did forget to mention that
okay.
would really fit well for the AK, if I may. Sorry, last minute add-in.
No, it's perfect.
I'm wearing the shirt for it. It's the Cobalt Kinetics Practical 2-Gun. It is April 23rd, 24th, I think, here in St. George, Utah. A friend of mine named Max Lee Grandis is running it. The targets, it's not designed for an AK, but it's very doable with an AK. It is a 2-gun match, so you will also need a pistol. And you can find the details for that if you just search on practicescore.com, search for Cobalt, Cobalt, or Practical 2-Gun.
Yeah. Love Cobalt Kinetics, man. They used to be a sponsor of the show. Tell them to get in touch with me. We need to get them back on.
I will, yeah.
Love those guys.
They actually own I shoot on now, so new owners of the company.
Okay, well, let's get reintroduced to them. Very good. So, Leadheads, until the next episode, study up on your AK history. Shoot those questions to me. If you've got a special guest that you'd like to have on, shoot me an email, talkinglead@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to get them on. All right, guys, we'll talk to you soon. See you. Bye.
All right. See you.